All righty. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again. I believe this is episode potentially 18 now of Card Talk Podcast. 18. I know, crazy. Adam just gave a nice...
You're telling me that the Card Talk Podcast has reached its legal voting age the day before the election?
Unbelievable.
That's exactly where I was going with that one.
Incredible.
We are incredibly honored.
I just want to interrupt and say what an honor it is to be here with Ryan Johnson, the card collector too, a breaker for the stars. People come into his store, they open up a box, 2 RPA out of 5. It's to be in your presence right now is quite an honor, I must say.
I would second that if he wasn't wearing a Ohio State scarlet piece of cloth on his body. But Ryan, I'll let you take your little big ups that you just received.
Yeah, I know. I certainly appreciate that, Adam.
And I came with a gift. I have tracked down and I have officially purchased the rights to Card Collector. And I would like to give it to you.
No way.
Today. No, I didn't. But now you know what to get for him for the holidays.
His face got so red because he had to do a full rebrand. He's like,
I'm like, dude,
nervous.
at this point, we're committed. Yeah. We're committed to the Card Collector 2 brand, but that's great. You're in. That would have been unbelievable if that would have been us episodes.
Oh man,
I have the deed right here. It's signed.
But yeah, Ty, certainly want to start off the show by just really giving my condolences to your Penn State Nittany Lions, man. Put up a fight, closer than I expected, but. Sorry.
Just not close enough to cover because we missed 2 2-point conversions down the stretch, which was tough.
You did get a convenient field goal right before the half.
Yeah, I mean, poor performance on you guys' part, but that's all right. You guys won. We'll move on from that.
It's fine.
I would like to introduce a good friend of mine. His name is Adam Lefkoe. You probably know him. He's waving if you're watching. He also has a beautiful background. It reminds me of 7th grade. Do you want it to be blue? Do you want it to be gray? Does mom want it to be the forest behind for picture day? It's beautiful. It's perfect.
Course. What it allows me to do is to not fold or put away clothes, and you guys have no idea. I highly recommend it.
Meanwhile, I've got glow-in-the-dark stars behind me from mid-90s over here. But, we
childhood bedroom?
Oh, yeah. Childhood COVID life.
Wow.
COVID life.
How do you break free and explore yourself as an adult human?
It's a fair question. I'm 8 months later still trying to figure it out, but we'll get there.
We'll get there one day. Tyler, you're doing it through sports cards.
That's a good point. But I wanted to bring up a story because really the last thing that I did that I remember that was like a normal human thing was you and I waited online together in the freezing cold in Chicago for D-Wade's Spades tournament the night of the All-Star game.
Wow, that did happen. We had just met each other after karaoke, and all I knew was I was supposed to meet some Tyler kid, and he just comes out of it was like Gary was there, and then all of a sudden it was like, I'm Tyler. And I was like, holy shit, you're the Tyler guy.
Yep.
And then I forgot we were waiting for the Spades tournament. And then Candace blew our chances in the first game. And I held it against her ever since.
And if you told me that on November 2nd, we'd be recording a podcast about cards together, it wasn't in the cards at that time. But here we are talking cards. And so we're excited to have you. I'm going to put it on wax. You've been a great friend. It's been fun to get to know you over all things cards, and I very much look up to you and how you conduct yourself in your business. And so thank you for taking the time being here with us.
Oh, that was super nice. No, I'm proud of you guys because as someone that likes making content all the time, we're at a really special time with this sports card stuff. All cards. I don't want to just say sports cards, but I mean, I recently called up Matthew Berry because I was like, I feel like this is where you were 15 years ago. And all the things that you could say about fantasy football, like, oh, look at those nerds, or, oh, what are they like writing down the statistics? Oh, you care about the statistics, and like, hey, oh, you got a computer system. Like, I'd have to imagine that there were, and I know there were, like rotisserie football leagues, and now it's big money. Now it's big business. And it's exciting. And I think what you guys are doing with a podcast is fun. What Ryan does, which looks tireless, which is whether it's making content or running a store. The thing that I love about this is sports cards opened up my entrepreneur brain. I will say this very openly. I have always been someone who said, as long as I'm good at my job, I'm not going to worry about that shit. And then Corona hit and I started using sports cards and I was like, yo, this is dope. And I've the amount of financial books that I've started to read, the ideas for businesses, mainly because every time I talk about cards with somebody, everybody lights up. And so I want to go to that light. So it's cool. I feel like you guys are in early too. Ryan's like, I always want to ask somebody like Ryan, like, do you get annoyed when people like me, Tyler, or Lou come in here acting like we know what the fuck we're talking about? And you have seen so many iterations of this for so long.
No, I mean, I said something the other day is on a podcast that I was being interviewed on. It's like we don't want to discourage somebody's ideas or beliefs when they just get into the hobby, right? Like people learn at different paces, people pick up on different things, people have different viewpoints of that. So if, I've seen different, like you said, different iterations, but there's a lot of different ways to view the hobby. So I try to be open-minded with it. And, I learned a lot from it too.
Overtly nice guy.
What'd you say?
You're also like an over-the-top nice guy.
Yeah, you're like one of the nicer people I've ever interacted with, so that probably helps as well.
Oh, that was great. But like Ryan, this is my question. You are literally doing a podcast with someone that is, in my opinion, the loudest soccer card supporter, and then someone that is one of the loudest Pokemon supporters. And these are two groups of cards that traditional hobbyists are going, we get it, but calm down. And I think it's the combination. I would love your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as an opportunity, right? We had the guy on, we had Matt on that's his name, right? Matt last week.
Yep.
Yeah. About Marvel. And we talked about those. And those are things I don't know as well. So I like learning about it just as much. So, if I would have listened to Lou and Tyler 6 months ago when we first started having these conversations, I'd have been in a much better spot financially with Pokemon and soccer cards. So yeah, I picked up a lot on it. Some things that they say, go in one ear and out the other, but they make a lot of good points.
It's funny that you say that. My guy, I did a podcast with him recently, Chris Jackson. Like he was the dude that I would say, well, I think that this is going to do this. And he'd go, well, here's the past. But there were a lot of things that I told him early on that ended up working out because I came in with a fresh perspective, which is I know what Tyler and Lou have. But yeah, we're all finding our way. I appreciate you guys having me. I feel like I'm taking over and I don't want to do
Not at all.
This is
Not
great.
at all.
Espresso.
I do think that very much in line with what we talk about. And there's a term where you like, I don't want to say what it is, but where you over communicate something. I don't know if it's politically correct right now to say beat it like a dead horse, but I'm going to go there anyway. You talked about
horse lobbyists?
Yeah, potentially. Or beating over a head lobbyists. But
okay. The manager of Santa Anita Racetrack is up in arms over Tyler Schmidt's comments on Card Talk.
Exactly. The entrepreneurial unlock of it. The trip and fall into something that makes you realize, oh shit, this is like possible not only in cards, but in a lot of different facets of life. And like the leading you to read financial books or whatever. And then just what I've found is now when I look at things, I'm like, oh, that might be a business there, or like I might be able to do something with that. Like, how much you pay for that? Just down the street, it was going for double, so that's something we've talked a lot about. And I think we've engaged well and something I want to stay in the lanes of. And so I just want to tap into you a little bit more on someone like yourself from the outsider's perspective, watches you on national TV growing up. You might be 16, 17 being like, well, that's sick. Like how do you become something like that? And then you hear from someone like, oh, I'm learning these things too, or it's just a job. Right. My own sister right now, she's doing her thing in creative, and my mom's kind of like, you should get a job. She's like, but I'd freelance and do all this. And so I just wanted to tap into a little bit of that feeling of like spark of entrepreneurial, like
Yes.
It's more than just buying and selling cards.
So Chris, I'm going to give him this compliment also very early on, because the thing is you see the possibilities in cards, and I think all of us go, including your boss, I think I'm going to give it up. And I think I'm just going to go into cards because it just makes too much sense, like supply, demand, and knowledge about. And Chris said in like our second phone call, he goes, I could tell you're getting really wrapped up. Remember that what you do is most important, and don't lose sight of that. And I was like, thank you for that level set.
Yeah.
Like what I'm doing right now, it's when you're in the middle of it, you don't think about like when you were younger and how much of a dream it was. But I know Lou wanted to kind of ask for what my path was. It was one-man band news reporter in Nebraska, making $18,000 a year in 2008.
You're from Nebraska?
No, that was where I took my first job.
Got it.
So I was shooting, writing, editing, producing, anchoring, all that stuff in Hastings, Nebraska, population 25,000. And if we wanted to cover the Huskers, that was an hour and 10-minute drive. I covered city council meetings. I covered a goat fashion show one time. And someone asked me recently how long I was there. And I was like, I did the full 2 years of that contract. Then I moved to Louisville for 3.5 years where I was a news reporter. I still couldn't get into sports. Somebody left. I just kept making tapes. And the news director was like, we'll give you a chance. Was there for about 3 more years. Couldn't get an agent to sign me. Got so frustrated that I made these reference videos. You know, when people do this now, like I kind of think I was the first one to do it, where I got wrestling references. And then the next week I did Seinfeld, and the next week I did rap. And I would put in like different lyrics and stuff like that. Because what you'll learn is when
it's
you're
like the Wale mixtape.
When you're a local newscaster, you either go viral if a dog poops on the desk next to you, or if you do something that is very out of the ordinary. And I was like, I am tired of just doing the news every day. And the rap one went viral. It's on YouTube at Rapcast. It got tweeted out by Time Magazine, and then like 2 minutes later, World Star Hip Hop, and I felt like I had crossed the boundary. All of those agents started calling me again. Then I got a job at Bleacher Report, and I've been there for like 6-7 years. I feel like I've had so many different iterations there. And the only thing that I've been trying to do, I just want to build community. That's like my number one thing is how do I entertain other people? So then NBA on TNT happened this past year. Honestly, with the NBA schedule, I don't know what the TV broadcasts are going to be like going forward, because they don't even know when the season's starting. So we don't know what day of the week it's going to be on. But Lou, man, it was crazy to be on there the first day and to look over at Wade and next to Shaq and Candace and to not be awestruck, but instead to be like, these are my coworkers. Because that changes a whole, like when my friend Salehi, who I'm very good friends with, is a big sneaker designer, he visited and he kept taking pictures of Shaq. And then afterwards we're in his hotel room and we're like drinking some bourbon and he's just cracking up. And he just goes, dude, you're like unfazed by Shaq. And I'm like, yeah, because he needs to talk when I tell, like, that's our job now. So it's crazy. And then what really hits at home is when I start getting into the hobby and people are like, hey man, I love this, because what I love about the hobby, man, it really might be the best sports fans I've seen.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, like they're the smartest sports fans I've seen. They like fantasy players. It's like one big game and they're like, oh, I'm going to pick them up. But like sports cars, like this is hype. This is bullshit. Like I'm not believing it. And I've never found a group of people that I wanted to talk to as much.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
I'm just doing the path.
So many insights. Yeah. And I was gonna tap into you for a second. Sorry,
to the entrepreneur thing. I made 18.5. My second job, I made 32. And then, so I never had money to invest. It was just like, I'm gonna work until I get big. Like I'm just going to figure it out.
And then that one time I'm going to get that check.
And so now like I have some money and I'm also like, okay, I'm tired of being an employee all the time. Like doing
your own thing is super cool. And when you said that just now, when you were like, I always would just, if as long as I'm good at my job, I'm good to go. I'm the exact same way. and I actually never put it together till just the second just now when you said that. Like when you can do your own thing and you're like, oh, cool. Like I am the decision maker on how this goes. It's very empowering and very fun.
My friend, I went to college with also, his name is Mitchell Hart. He lives in Austin. He has always been someone that like one time started getting manufacturing for like these to-go containers and started selling them. And I was like, I never even thought about that stuff. And then he would always be like, you need to create machines that can generate wealth for you. And I've always been like, yeah, but I'm a creative and you can't really scale yourself. I can't host 8 different things at the same time. But then I got into sports cards and I was like, all I talk about are opinions. Like that was the first thing Gary said to me was he's like, all you do for your job is argue who's good. So why not make money on that?
Yeah.
And then when I sold a card, it like hit me like dopamine. And I was like, I make money on my sports takes. Like I'm so in.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you made like $9 on something and you were like, wait.
But that was the national for me for the first time, Rye, we met. I remember exactly that conference, the big convention center. And on one side of the room, someone was selling the card for like 25% less than it was being sold at a different table. And I was like, both are probably going to be bought. And oh shit. So on the first day I bought one of them and the other day I sold it for like $8 more. And to the point of where like the manufacturing thing, what I think it does to the brain is it makes you realize like, yo, those things that are unattainable, like being on a desk with Wade and Shaq and Candace talking about sports, are actually fairly obtainable if that wall is not in front of you.
I would also say, if you're interested in making content, I would say look around at the people that have had wild independent success. Jim Rome, Dan Le Batard, Pat McAfee. These are guys that have that Dan Patrick, and they have clusters of their friends, and you just build. And like me and Sims learned a long time ago, it probably took us 2.5 years before anybody even gave a shit. And we didn't realize they gave a shit at that point. But all of a sudden, Sims would say something and it would get picked up by like a 49ers blog. And we would have all these alerts set. And then one season, they just started going off. And I was like, Sims, you've been saying that take for 3 years.
Yeah.
It was like we talked about Blake Bortles not being good for 3 years. And then 1 year, everybody was like, eventually, wait a second, Blake Bortles isn't good. And I was like, wait.
Yeah, where the fuck you been?
My question for Ryan would be, though, you've been to a lot of conventions. What is it going to be like now that everybody has some form of market tool for values, that when I go to a table and you go, oh, that Luka is going to be 1,400. And then I go, well, the eBay comps have it at 1,320, or Card Ladder has it at 1,310. You know, how different do you think it's going to be that we're going to have this information readily available? And does that take away from your advantage of dealing so much and knowing values?
I don't think it's going to make any difference at all. I mean, I've gone to the last 10 nationals and I've had a phone for all of them, right? So you're always going to have the eBay app on you if you have your phone. I think the big thing I think about with conventions that's really intriguing, especially for a seller, is the national next year in Chicago, assuming it happens, will be the single biggest sports card convention of all time. It will be huge. I've started planning the trade night we run. It's going to be massive.
There's going to be a live episode of Card Talk happening.
What's the date?
End of July, first week of
last
August.
weekend of July.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if there's an early window to this COVID thing ending, my money would be like I would say early July. My wedding is in May. Okay. And I'm telling you that I'm not feeling confident about it, but July.
July 28th specifically.
In Chicago. What a great time to be in Chicago. But that's fascinating. So you think it's going to be the biggest of all time? What's been the biggest before this one?
Probably the last one. I mean, it's at this point, with the market getting bigger and bigger every day, and especially with what COVID did to it, it's going to be huge. But that's where I think the biggest advantage for sellers is just the sheer number of buyers, right? So you're going to go in there and you're going to have a Luca PSA 10 for 1,200, and someone's going to be like, hey, these do 1,150. There's somebody in that room that's going to pay $1,200 for that card, right? Just
cards are going to fly so fast.
So fast. You'll know how well you're doing when there's a whole room full of people. Yes. You're either selling stuff or you're not selling stuff. So I don't know if you're going to be sitting on eBay price checking every single card. I think you're just going to have to, use a little instinct there and take some shots.
This is Adam Lefkoe's advice for people that have never been to a convention, noting that I have never been to a convention. My number one piece of advice, because all I do is just listen to people, is don't buy or buy anything right away, because everyone tells the story. I went in, I spent everything immediately, and then I went around, I didn't even realize what was there. That's just the number one piece of advice I've heard from everybody.
Adam, you walk in again. I went before this year they canceled. I'd been to the last 10 since Cleveland in 2009. And you walk in, and even as someone that's been so many times, it is overwhelming. You walk in, I believe the size requirement to host the National is 500,000 continuous square feet. So these are huge buildings, right? These are massive places filled with everybody and anybody in cards, right? All of the big graders, the card companies, supplies, everything is there. So you walk in and it's overwhelming. So if you go in and you rush to spend your money real quick, you're not going to make it very far. You're going to walk in and see a Babe Ruth game used jersey and a Ty Cobb bat and just be immediately blown away.
Yeah.
And you got 500,000 continuous square feet.
Are PSA and BGS on opposite sides?
It's all in the center. PSA, BGS, SGC, David Adams, everyone is in the middle. It's
the main people are in the middle. Panini, Topps, Upper Deck.
Do they talk to each other? Are they competitive with each other, do you think?
It's like the Sharks and the Jets. No, it's not.
Do they do like live auctions with a real auctioneer?
I don't think so.
Missed opportunity. I volunteer.
I like that. We
got 1,200 with Luca. 1,200. I got 12, 25, 12, 25. Oh, 1250, 1250.
I feel like this could be a card talk consignment play.
I did pitch that. I was thinking about consigning my Pikachu on this podcast.
Okay. Can we get into like some like Adam Lefkoe takes really quick? Because I want to do it. Yeah. I need to understand. I have two things for you.
Part of why I love Lou and I love Tyler is they're not afraid to say I disagree with you. And I
not only was I disagree with you, I'll say I hate you. But
I will only disagree with people. Yeah, I will only disagree with people when I respect them. When I don't, I go,
yeah, just kind of
yeah. Okay, so let me ask you two things. One, I want to understand your perspective on the Pokemon thing, because you are very you go back and forth.
Like I'm all over the place.
Yeah, in the best possible way. Like you're like, wait, I actually like this a lot, but then also like I'm already here, X% increase. Why wouldn't I sell this? And then number two, the other thing I want to understand from you is like, what are like I don't want to say three. Give me your biggest observation you've taken away now, like 6 or 7 months into this, an observation where you were like, oh, and it made you think about something differently. Because I think when I talk to you, I hear a perspective from you where you listen to a lot of collectors in a way that I necessarily wouldn't, where I'm closed-minded and stupid that way, and you're not.
Well, no, my friend Saleh said to me recently, he goes, your best quality is that you're curious and that you ask questions.
Best fucking quality in the world.
And because I'll ask dads what it's like having a kid, because I don't want to figure that out when it happens. I want to have some idea. Like, it's okay to admit that you don't know things. So first off was my thoughts on Pokemon. When you started talking about it a lot, it made a lot of sense. And when the Pokemon collectors give me the same vibes as sports card collectors, where once I look at them and I go, oh, wow, this is a very stable market, they give me this grin where it's like, we've been enjoying it for a very long time and nobody knows. So that's there. It has a huge fan base. I get everything. It's the people that are in right now. It's this hoopla that it turns me off and it kind of scares me a little bit. And when I see people like the box being broken with it not being a real box was not the part of the video that I didn't like. The part of the video that I didn't like was the 20-minute intro from whoever that podcast is, where all they said repeatedly was, can't believe I'm saying a Pokemon box, but we think it's going to turn into a lot of money. And as soon as, like, when I hear people say, buy this sports card because it's going to go up and then you can sell it for more money, there's no storytelling there. There's no heart. There's no passion. But when someone says, this is a LeBron black gold out of 5, this was the big get in that hobby box. Like, and so it's the characters that are scaring me. But I would also say to you that I agree that I think Pokemon has been a long-term play, and I still think it's a long-term play. But this is a very unique piece of time. As Ryan said, we're about to have the largest convention ever. We are at a mania. And so there's part of me that goes, there's a dip after this, just like there was a dip of those Ronaldo prisms, just like there was a dip of modern NBA, Michael Porter Jr.
My guy.
I'm not personally mentioning all of the cards that you have. But my thing is I believe in Michael Porter Jr. long term. I believe in Cristiano Ronaldo cards long term. But it's one of those things where it goes up and then down. And so the question is how much do you believe in it?
Yeah.
And I don't really want to be owning cards and hanging out with Guru. He just doesn't seem like somebody I want to hang out with. So I don't know. What do you think? I'm making this a human thing, but
yeah, no, I agree with you. The thing when you say the part where it's like there's a hoopla and right, that happens no matter what though. Like that happens with basketball. It happens with football. Happened a little bit. It happens with soccer cards. Whenever there's a huge moment, vintage basketball had that moment as well, where it's like, oh, people are chasing money. It's like, yeah, because they go on TMZ, they see a TMZ headline of like, this is sold for $250K, and now they're
why the TMZ Rob Kardashian had like a $1,000 card.
The fact that TMZ has become like the hub for sports card sales.
It's funny. I'm just jumping in real quick. I really believe that all of those people don't go through the moment of like, oh shit, the entrepreneurial thought or the business thought or the let me think. It's more just I can make money doing this.
Yeah.
Hey everyone! Hey, guess what? You can make money doing this. Look at this card.
The barrier for this is not money; it is education. Yep. And that if you come in and spend a lot of money, it doesn't like that's not hard. It's not hard to spend money. It's hard to make money. Like I've always told people, like it's very easy to buy cards.
Yep.
And it is the opposite to sell those cards.
I'm like beating myself up so much right now about like selling cards. I don't know why.
Which ones?
I have some Pokemon stuff I want to sell in general, like a Luca. But to your point of it's hard to sell cards because I'm definitely in a bit of an emotional state with my cards right now.
I think it's the same thing as trading on your fantasy team. You know, you take a
Yeah,
guy.
for real.
He's got a good schedule coming up.
I know that's my guy. Like I drafted him. I want to win the chip with him.
And then Lou, your question about like observations is here's a few that I think I've learned. The market cap. I saw somebody post something about that recently. It is important to know which players are the most popular by collectors. I agree with that mindset. If you're collecting Luca, there's a lot of people like you, and there's going to be a lot of interest in that. But I know that us and a lot of people that we know, you're going down, well, maybe Andy Roddick, you know what I mean? Or I was looking at Naomi Osaka, but it's like, how many people really are going to want that? Because I don't want to, if you're doing a PC, which I think is important, you really should like the cards. I get it. But if you're looking to flip, no. Another thing, Lou, is that if you have your friend on FaceTime, since we're in COVID, and you go to show them your cards and you look at your cards and you go, oh, I don't really want to show those for, then sell them. Like, what is it going to go up? A few $100 more as we get closer to the season? Well, then if that's a big part of your bankroll, then we're doing bankroll management, but we're not keeping them longer than we need to. If you don't want to show it to your friends, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, if it doesn't excite you, it's really not worth having anyway.
But we also get.
Go for it. No, please.
But we get that same type of piece of advice though when we get asked all the time, like, "Hey, when should I sell this card?" Right? And you mentioned bankroll. It's like if that card if doesn't interest you, if you're not keeping this card forever, if it doesn't interest you enough, does that money keep you playing the game? Right? Does that money keep your card? Is that your only card budget? Is that not your card budget? I think that's a very that's a good point though. Is like if that depending on how much money you have in the game in cards, everybody's different. Does that money allow you to buy more stuff, or is that money irrelevant in the grand scheme of things? Then it's hold it for 2 months, 3 months, sell it later, and make your money. But yeah,
that's what I was talking to you, Adam, about. It was like you were talking about selling your Red Cheeks 10 and whatever you bought.
That's right.
For.
First edition PSA 10 Red Cheeks.
All right, settle down. We're not gonna.
If you're interested.
But if you are, make sure it comes through the path here. So
the card talk consignment.
Validate the consignment.
There's a promo code.
No, what I was saying to you was like, cool. What are you going to do with the profit that you made off of that?
Right.
Like, what is the upgrade you're making with
100%,
$4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in that situation, as opposed, like, what are you going to do with that money? If you're not going to do anything,
Do you want to know like certain cards?
100%.
Go for it, Ryan.
Yeah. No. Let's.
I want to hear what Ryan has to say.
That is, I get asked this all the time from people that have like bigger, some of my friends that have bigger investments, like Luka Red PRIZM PSA 10 rookie and LeBron Topps Chrome PSA 10 rookie and major cards, 5-figure cards. And they're like, should I sell this? Should I sell this? Not. If you have something else to do with the money, sell it, right? If you're like, hey, this Luka's cool. I don't really love it, but I want to do this with the money. Then sell the card. If you're not going to do anything with the money, you're not making any money in a savings account. Would I rather have the Luka 3 months from now or the $10,000 in a checking account 3 months from now? I definitely rather have the Luka. So at that point, it comes down to what are you, and Lou's point, I could not agree more with this, is what are you going to do with the money? If you have an immediate plan, sell the card. If you don't, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, unless, again, if it's Blake Bortles, maybe sell it.
Right.
It's different on who that is, but if it's,
Lou, I was going to use the funds. My grandmom's going through I'm just kidding. I want to make you feel guilty.
I wanted to jump. I think it's
well.
right
Hold on,
on
let me answer
topic.
Lou's question.
All right, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
I want to
keep
understand. I want to understand.
So for me, it would be. I think that there's something really exciting about getting money that's profit, and then sitting back and looking at the entire market and going, where do I want to attack this right now? And so if I was going to be honest, if I'm, and I always couch this when I do interviews because I should always buy these cards before I talk about them. But like if I was going to look around with 10 grand, I'm either looking at a few people. I'm looking at Tom Brady. I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes. I'm looking at Kyler Murray. I'm looking at Russell Wilson. If I'm doing that, I'm looking at Devin Booker. I'm looking at underpriced vintage after it skyrocketed and then collapsed. If there's anything there that I really like. I'm also, to be very candid, thinking about putting maybe it into a fund, a card fund. And I know that this is something that's typically been reserved for, this is a different way of investing, but like, oh, if you don't know a lot of cards, a fund is an easier way to get in. At the same point, what I've learned at least is that the multipliers of the big cards go up a lot faster than the littler cards. And so if there are funds out there that have the really biggest cards that are out there, like maybe this is a smarter way of using 10 grand that isn't going to be on what if Kyler tears an ACL, God forbid. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I've thought about that too, because is that a way of diversifying my card money? It's a lot less fun because it's a lot more fun to do the flipping, but
yeah. So, and the
I'm
other
just telling
thing,
you where my brain goes.
Yep. The other thing you said to me a while back, and I'm not sure if you still, I think you still do subscribe to this, is you were like, what's the $1.2 million card? And like, that's where you want to focus your energy as opposed to the Kyler and all that stuff.
This is why I would say to people, the best way to learn about the hobby is not from DMing people and asking questions. It's not even from listening to podcasts. It's from watching breakers. because if you watch breakers, you learn what matters. You learn which athlete they stop on and talk about the most. You learn the fact that it's a good card, but we're going to flip it over because if it has a serial number, I really fuck with it. And so you see what causes reaction. I see how people react to a stained glass. I see how they react to a Kaboom versus how they react to a My House. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. But just from talking to more and more people, we can convince ourselves that silvers are cool. But when it's serial numbered or it's gold or it's an NTRPA, there are certain brands that hold the most like true value. And so for me, it would be like I sold my Luka the day that he dropped 40 and the triple double. I sold it at halftime, I think for 1,700. Not because I don't believe in Luka, but because if I'm going to invest in Luka, I don't want it to be the base. I want to get a step up or something like that. So I'm going to take that money and I used it for something else. But and again, I would rather ask Ryan these questions because I'm 8 months in. But that for me, it's the $1.2 million cards are the ones that are truly rare and they're harder to get. And so I'd rather find ways to get them than have a bunch of little pieces. But
yeah, I mean, that's 100% accurate. If you're going to buy something long term, which card do I want 10 years from now? The PRIZM rookie at a Luka at a 99 that, you know, don't come up for sale very often. Most people that have them in collections put away. Like, you're not seeing those. I mean, how many times, I would be curious to know, how many Giannis PRIZM rookie cards numbered out of 199 or less have sold on eBay in the last 90 days?
Right.
It's probably less than 5. Maybe
Ryan,
less than 10.
I remember when I got in, because you're nervous when you first get in. So what you do is you go, I can't afford that. So let me get this Luka just so that I have a piece of the action. And I know it's not going to go up, but it's going to go up a little bit. And then that mindset eventually fades away where like you show somebody your Luka and they're like, do you got anything serial numbered? And I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yep. And I almost think there's like a hierarchy to the card, like the card game, right? It's like there are certain cards that your average collector is trading, right? If you're just new to the hobby, you've got a limited budget, there are certain cards that are trading. And then there's cards that are traded by more of like a higher end, a dealer, a full-time card entrepreneur, where it's like, hey, like when Luka's got to PSA 10's got to $2,000, your everyday 9 to 5 guy probably doesn't have 4 or 5 of those he's sitting on. Like he's probably got a Donruss PSA 10 and a Select Raw rookie card. So I think that there's tiers there with that. But yeah, I go back to Giannis PSA 10 PRIZMs in the last 90 days, base rookies versus Giannis PRIZM rookies out of 199 or 249 in the last 90 days. The numbers are gonna be very different, and that's for a reason, right? 5 years from now, if you wanted something of Luka, the PSA 10 will be readily available. The PRIZM Luka at a 99 or 199 won't be.
Yeah, and I think for the back to like supply and demand, even if demand is less, if supply is much less, sometimes you only got to hit, you only need one person to want to buy that card for 1.5 million to sell it for 1.5 million. Right? Whereas if you've got 13,000 Zions, like you can only creep up so much marginally in terms of price because people are someone's going to be willing to sell it for just a little bit less.
Yeah. But also we've talked about this before on the podcast. We don't really know yet how many people got in cards when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is something that Ryan talks about a lot. And I appreciate the fact that even when Gary was on, he wouldn't back down from it. That you were saying that COVID genuinely caused a huge explosion.
100%.
And I guess my question for you would be, are we ever going to go back to normal? Or is this post-COVID world just kind of be what it is? Where people are more comfortable online and Zoom and digital trade shows, and like, is this kind of the new normal now?
I get a lot of like that normalcy from like Tyler and Lou because they see it a lot more like with the Zoom calls. I'm not in the professional world as much, so I get a lot of that from them. But yeah, that's always been the $1 million question, right? Is when we go back to normal, whatever that looks like, and you can go to a sporting game and you can travel and you can buy things. Do those people remain in the hobby? Are we inflated just because there isn't an alternative option to spend money or to go places? So that's where I think about it is if you can do those things and you have less attention in the card market, are you still staying in it? I think yes. Again, we've talked about with someone before about a daily fantasy, right?
Yeah, that's where I was going to take this.
Where it's tangible. You've got tangible cards. If you don't have Lamar Jackson on your fantasy team, but you believe in Lamar Jackson, you go buy his rookie cards. They're tangible. You get them. If Lamar Jackson goes up, you're making something on that.
But I think where I was going to take it is like this past month, first off, sports betting. Sports betting has been around for an incredibly long time. People have been betting on sports. Yet there's a very large subset of people that think it's like this new phenomena or hobby, or like all of a sudden dudes like to bet on sports. But you can't discount the fact that all these people got into sports cards. Guess what? Now everyone's going to build around keeping them there, right? So like with sports betting, the same people that would have been betting forever ago, 80 years ago, now they just have the access and the ability to. And what we know, the collective group of this four, is that there's a lot of money being thrown into building platforms for accessibility, the iterations around it. 80 years ago, you couldn't just fire up DraftKings right now and bet on who's going to score the first touchdown in the Giants game tonight, or over under on the third string Giants rookie, catches 1.5 minus 137 or something like that. So I think that what a business is really good at is making sure that they don't go away.
And Todd, your point there about the instant is what I also love about cards, right? You're like, hey, if I'm going to go bet on the game tonight and I want to go bet right now that this guy's going to do this tonight. Hey, if I want to go rip a box of PRIZM, there's a good chance somebody right now has the ability to rip a box of PRIZM for me instantly, right? You're selling time the same way Amazon sells it. You're selling the instant gratification portion of this because we forget a lot. There are a lot of collectors in this, but there's a lot of gambling as well, right? You want to rip a $1,200 or $2,000 or whatever PRIZM basketball costs right now. I think it's $2,300. You want to rip a $2,300 box of PRIZM? There's somebody out there that can do it for you right now. And I think that's always going to be a big factor in this is, hey, I can get a quick fix and get a $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 Zion quickly. I think it's here to stay.
I'll also say this. So this is DraftKings stock this week. Absolute free fall. I think it went from 65 to 35. And then you pull up our good buddies out there at Collector Universe, and that's Collector's Universe the last 6 months. And the thing I would say is I asked someone recently, why is DraftKings stock falling? And they were saying, well, because it's so unreliable about when sporting events are going to be. It's hard to bet on sports when you don't know when the games are going to be. And I thought, that's funny because this boomed when there was no sports. Sports card prices go up when there are no sports. If I was going to do a counter idea to something that you guys said recently, where you were like, now's a great time to buy Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, which I agree, they're all-time greats. But I would just say, go look at, and I feel like my video is skipping, but go look at Trae Young, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry, and Bradley Beal, and all these guys that did not play in the bubble. Compared to all the other drop-offs, it actually hasn't been that much because there's always the what if. As it's almost like to me, when you have reality, as soon as Patrick Mahomes steps foot on the Super Bowl, his prices go down. Like, I hope you guys understand.
It's like the best part of Christmas is not Christmas.
It's the idea
25
of 25
days of it's
when you guys did a podcast when the NBA said we might be returning December 22nd. Tyler immediately went, you know that if Zion comes in and drops 50 on the first night, that it's going to be crazy. And I'm not going to lie, a part of me was like, man, Zion really could come out and drop 50. But the thing is, as soon as he plays the first game and he doesn't drop 50, it's over. And so, and that's why for me, I'm almost like, man, is is this the highest KD is going to be until he shows that he's going to be a champion? It's the funny thing about sports cards is it doesn't need sports, because even when there's no
narrative
sport,
driven.
It's about narrative and legacy. And that's why I love Kareem.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, I love the arguments for Kareem. They're so good.
But Adam and Tyler and Lou, I would love your guys' opinion on this, because your point about Zion doesn't come out and drop 50, it doesn't bode well, right? Like Drew Lock has one bad game, prices start to dip, right? In
then
the market,
comes back dancing.
Then he comes back dancing. But what I'm getting at is the market right now is, so we had this big run up end of July, early August, right? That's when the card market was the hottest. It's cooled down since then.
Yes.
Mbappe Silver's dropped. Everything's pretty much down. My question is, does the volatility now with overreaction Monday, does that scare you?
Are you seeing overreactions? Because I would say, and I'm genuinely asking this as a question, I feel like people only study the markets of which they own cards. Like when you have a Luka, you use the Luka market as a metric. So where are you seeing overreactions from your like?
Yeah, I mean, Zion's up in the last month.
I see it as people that are playing now, right? Like look on, if you're, again, I'm on Instagram, right? And I'll follow all these card accounts, and somebody Drew Lock in the first 3 quarters didn't do a whole lot. And everyone's like, man, rest in peace to all the Drew Lock investors. Imagine putting money in that guy. And then he comes and immediately he comes, like his stuff goes up, then it goes down. It goes down, it goes up. It seems like people are so quick to react with one bad game. Now football is only a 16-week season.
So as somebody that has now covered the NFL for like 6-7 years, and I used to cover college basketball and I work in the NBA, that is my least favorite part about NFL, is that it's literally a game that is, because of the pauses, creates more overreaction. You have a play, and then you have 35 seconds to talk about what they should have done. You have a play, and it's the same, and then you have 35 seconds to predict what they're going to do. And then with the NFL, there's a game on Sunday, and you wait a week. The NBA, we overreact when, oh, did you notice that Rui Hachimura put together 5 games in a row? Like, unless you drop 50, there's no overreactions. But I just think that's the nature of the NFL. That's why it's called overreaction.
Also like, well, his offensive coordinator sucks, or like, this guy's awful.
NFL's so hard. Like if DK Metcalf wasn't, like learning from Russell Wilson and like completely getting that mind meld of like, you're going to be the greatest of all time, would he be this great other places? I don't think so. And so that's why
he would be on the Jets.
And would Sam Darnold be that bad on other teams?
Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson has played with
Bortles,
Blake Bortles, Christian Hackenberg, and now like decomposing Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky.
Yep.
Ty, one of the things we were talking about yesterday was because we were talking about wide receivers and like football cards and everything. And one of the things I thought going in so hard was position players are going to be a lot bigger than they turned out to be. I thought position players were going to be a very big thing, right? And what I didn't account for was, as opposed to basketball and baseball and pretty much every other sport of the bigger sports, like your destiny is so not in your hands in football. It's so reliant on the other pieces, like the other cogs in the machine. Yeah. And even quarterbacks, like we were saying, like I still think whatever Sam might be good or not.
Sam's really good,
but it has zero. He has zero control over how the rest of this year goes and how the rest of his career might go.
It's why I think that Mahomes prices are so dangerous. I am friends with Mahomes. I love that guy. He is already, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback of all time with what he's already accomplished, MVP and a Super Bowl, like amazing. But I feel like the prices have already baked in 3 to 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And as you just said, if his offensive line gets hurt or his wide receivers get into a contract dispute,
or Andy Reid decides to retire and go be with his fam, moments can be fleeting. Or
his defense lets up 50 points, like it's just so unpredictable. Where the NBA, it's like they're 20% of the guys on the court.
But I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. The one thing I will say, like, look at some of the teams that Brady had on the Patriots that weren't very good, and they're not good very now without Tom Brady.
Totally.
With all these bums. So I think talent has to play a huge factor in this. Like,
Totally.
I'm not saying Mahomes is going to win a Super Bowl on the Jets. I'm not sure anybody would win on that team.
But if there's one guy, it's him.
That's true.
Sports are hard enough as it is.
Hold on, Tyler. What's that face? Are you a Mahomes doubter?
No, I'm just
he's talking about the Jets.
with the underhanded, no one
Yeah.
went on that team.
Yeah, he's being very negative.
The Jets are terrible.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
by
are
the
the
way,
Patriots, Ryan. The Patriots are
they're
freaking
awful.
horrible.
They're both
Where I crushed Ryan, absolutely crushed Ryan about him picking the Patriots to win the AFC East, and I need it bad because I think I painted the exact picture that they're going through right now.
I want to go back to something that we were talking about earlier, where we were talking about where cards is this moment is it fleeting? Is this something that can really stick? Adam, talking to collectors, and when they talk about how it does, this doesn't make any sense, and this can't stay the way it is. Breaking was already happening, and all of these things were already happening. It's just that more people are doing them now. So of course, it gets more popular because someone like you come in and you're like, oh wait, I'm gonna jump in a live stream and watch a break. Oh, I'm gonna do a break. Oh, and then you tell someone else. That's just how these things go. So it's
totally.
The thing I don't understand, and I don't think I ever will, is when people say this doesn't make any sense. It's everything that you're already doing, there's just more people doing it now. So why is that so hard to believe is the thing that I never can get my head around.
I think that's interesting. I've learned about entrepreneurship, and I've learned about how important hype is and storytelling is. It's the same thing if you're looking to sell a business or you're looking to go public on the stock market. There needs to be an energy behind it. Yeah.
Humans are humans.
I have no doubts about the future of this. My only hope is that there are so many people coming in that want to build foundational changes to the hobby, whether it's changing grading, whether it's changing manufacturing, whether it's changing content, whether it's changing breaking, hobby boxes, everything. I feel like everything is up for grabs right now. And the reason that I like to talk to hobbyists is because I feel like Ryan has probably heard this story before. He's probably heard of a lot of people with money that came in and said, we're going to corner the market on this. And do I feel like this could be a huge change? It can. But Lou, I found it crazy that I would go into live streams and they would be freaked out that I was there. Because I'm sitting there going, who the fuck am I? And that's not being humble like that. It just, I'm being
that's
real.
The real thing. Cards is funny. The card community is funny in that is a thing that happens. And then it's they're like hockey fans and it's get off my lawn at a certain point. And that's the thing that I don't understand. That part I don't get. How can you be so excited to have someone like you in it? And it's amazing. It's super fun. It's cool.
I think we're speaking in general terms a little bit. I think you can go into anywhere, any place, and find positive and negative.
I'm sure there are fantasy football. I'm sure there are true fantasy football players that prefer to write down their statistics by hand.
100%.
That everyone uses Yahoo,
or people that have been putting out a podcast for 2 years saying that these are the best PPR people, and then some new person comes along and they're like, "Why do you get to do a podcast now?"
Yes, but what I was talking about was when we're talking about the size of the market and how the staying power of it. A lot of people would say that it's driven by influencers like Adam. And the thing where it's oh, cool, Adam's here. And yes, I know. Yes, it is. It's insane. And people are like, oh, cool, Adam's here. And then at the same breath, there's 20 people saying, oh, this is awesome. And there's another 20 people saying, this is the reason why it's bad. I don't understand that dichotomy. That's all.
I made this comparison, and again, I'm going to turn to Ryan to see if I'm crazy. I said this on Stacking Slabs with Brett. I said that it reminds me of gentrification in terms of this. It's like you move into Harlem and you pay a lot more money for an apartment there. And your neighbors, you're looking at them and you're going, hey, guess what? The prices of all of your apartments just went up. And they're like, yeah, but guess what? I didn't want to live in a neighborhood with you. I'm just being honest. And then more people come in, the price keeps going up. And then eventually I can't live there anymore. And I feel like that's the only thing that I found that is similar, which is some people wanted to just collect cards and talk to their friends, and that was it. And I think now that people are coming in with different mindsets, whether it's a flipping mindset or strictly a financial mindset. Like Lou and Tyler, like you guys genuinely enjoy cards too.
Yeah.
But I think when people first come in, it's only money. And so that's what my guess. And I would go to Ryan to see if it's accurate.
I want to use this moment because for about the last 37 minutes, I've been trying to like go to this topic. And this is the fourth transition period where I've somewhat been able to, but it's on this. And it's around romanticism for the current moment. And the luck that we nice get through that. Having you on here, and I think when I think about people listening and watching, and I always talk about, I'm grateful of now 7 years of being able to watch someone that I believe is at the tippy top of their craft and being able to do it. But I believe that
I'm
consistency.
Impressed by Lou too.
Yeah, me too. It's great. I mean, it's my guy. The consistency that it takes to always be in the game, in the mix, waking up and being in the mix, whether it's on the desk with Wade and Shaq and Candace, or whether it's Ryan and like, I got a break, I got to open the shop, I got business to do. And then also the constant reinvention that it takes to stay in the game, and I see you coming into cards, you love it as like for your brand and your person, your business as reinvention. For the hobbyists that have been in it forever, to be in the game, it's you got to keep reinventing the approach with the game as it's changing. Otherwise, people will stop caring. Like if you bred the greatest horses of all time in the Northeast ever, and then Ford came along and you probably had the deal on the table, but you were like, get off my lawn. We do horses around here. No one's going to do that. And you took that approach. Or if you were like, yeah, I'm going to use all this leverage I just built up by being the greatest horse homie. And Ford, now you're my boy because I'm going to introduce you. And then we're going to do business together. And then when the next thing comes, consistency of staying in the game, consistency of not being romantic about this moment, but being able to reinvent. Can you talk a little bit about that, both inside? And I think it's the point that we're making in cards is that people get pissed because they don't want to put in the effort of reapproaching it because things are always the only constant is change.
Yeah, I think so. Like to go back to living in Nebraska, in every step that I've done, I've thought, oh, this is where I can live for the rest of my life. Like even when like there's a moment where like you're a year and a month in and you start getting your bearings in Nebraska and you look around and you go, I can host a radio show. They let me like do stuff, whatever. Like you have to understand, I worked at a TV station that did not have a real functioning website. Like it was pretty good. And I took a salesperson to a local bar called Bullseyes. And I convinced the bar owner, because I drank there all the time, to sponsor an internet show that I did in 2008. There weren't even internet shows back then, but it would live there and I would do live shows from the bar. And then the salesperson offered it for $200 a month. And then the guy paused and she went, 100. And I was like, what the fuck? So like, I have always been like, how do I mix it up? I've always had that mindset. But living in Nebraska, not everyone has that mindset. People just want to live their lives. People don't want to change. People go, my parents grew up in this town. Their parents grew up in this town. And my town, I don't really want it to change. And I think it is a very Northeast mindset. And I'm not calling, I'm just saying like, it's having lived in Kentucky in rural areas and Nebraska. Some people just want to live their lives the way they live it. And they're not trying to get crazy. And it's New York where it's like, I'm going to buy that apartment, then I'm going to sell it, then I'm going to get a bigger apartment. But like they get married in Nebraska at 18 and they got kids by 19. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a lot of people that I met because I was 21, 22. And they were just like, this is the life that I want to live. Yeah. And to me, that's a huge thing too, is the investor mindset. And some people just want to do what they love, which is hold their cards and look at it.
Yeah. But I don't think then that I completely agree. And I think you're right. But there's the disconnect. And then why are you pissed at the people that are taking it and changing it? I get I don't want this to change, but then like, if you don't want to be a part of that change, you have to accept that, okay, if you want to, there's Panini puts out NBA hoops product. You don't got to play in the PRIZM world anymore. They put out low cost stuff. If you want to stay in that world, keep your friend. Like, that's fine. You can't have both. You can't be pissed at the people that are doing it and then not do it.
It seems like this is Ty. It seems like this is less of a card thing and more of a mindset thing. Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Change is inevitable, right? If you don't like that Panini's making hoops premium, that's a mindset thing. It has. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I was just going to say, if you don't like something about the hobby, this is the greatest opportunity maybe ever to fix it, no matter what it is. If you're out there and you do not believe that vintage college football gets enough respect, well, then guess what? Own it. The lane is open. You can be the guy that brings it back. Shout out to 2005 Jay-Z Topps, who like used to be Rock Nation Cards and then was like, I love this set. And now that's all he posts. And I think that if you don't like the content in the hobby and you think it's too much about Pokemon, launch a show. I just feel like the worst thing that you can do right now in the hobby is to sit back and complain about what other people are doing in the hobby, because
people stop caring about
everything is available. Like even Ryan, like Ryan has his own hobby shop and he's got, he's doing breaks and all that stuff. And if you're sitting there being like, man, you know, like Ryan's just over there and like, he's just showing me what he's making, like all that stuff. Like, guess what, bro? Start your own. Like, and don't be that person that in 5 years is going to look around and see like how the convention's grown every single year and it's getting bigger and there's all these new things popping up. And you're going to sit there and be like, man, I had some of those ideas and they stole it. Don't be that guy, because we all have the same ideas about every aspect of this hobby. Like now it's really the chance to make your mark. Yeah.
And I think, again, you being as someone that can be relatable in the hobby, you pop into a break, people are like, Lefkoe's here, epic. And then it's like, this is amazing, but prices just went up on PRIZM and I hate that. And it's like, okay, well, which is it? Which is it? What are we talking about? And you want to be willing to be on the, national broadcast TV talking about something that you love? Well, then guess what? You got to realize that the world's going to keep changing. And unless you're willing to change with it, probably not going to be on that. Probably not going to be on that desk.
I feel like most people that listen to you guys have that mindset, though.
Yeah, but I think you have to keep reminding them with people like yourself that come on and are willing to say it through firsthand experience.
Yeah, I just model my life after Lou.
I model my life after Tyler. So,
and I model. Never mind, he's wearing an Ohio State jersey.
Oh,
I set you up for that one on purpose. By the way, I was gonna say Ryan. I swear I was, and I wanted you to say I model after the Ohio State thing. All right, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Adam, you're the best.
Good? I don't know. Was that okay?
I think that was great, but I maybe brought some negative energy at the end.
No, I thought that was great. It's a different conversation entirely, but it was really good. And I would love to do a sports card State of the Union with Adam Lefkoe once every 18 episodes.
I think it's right.
I think that's the plan.
I think that everybody, though, and I know that your producers are just like, shut the fuck up. my thing to everybody is, I'm admitting this now to put more pressure on myself. Like, I have so many ideas for content for the card community, and I'm just not doing it. And I'm so much of what I'm saying right now is to motivate myself, because I know that sports cards are here to stay for a very long time. And I know that this is only going to keep growing. And the only reason that I'm not throwing it in crazy is because there's definitely people in my life that are like, I think you're talking about cards too much. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that can kind of consume it. But I say this to everybody, just know that I'm saying it to myself. Now is the time. So.
Hell yeah. You texted me that one time when I texted you and I was like, I want to do more podcasting and more media stuff. And you're like, okay. Well, then you should do it. And I was like, damn, he just told me I should do it.
Yeah. I learned that from, what was the guy that was in Even Stevens and then was in Transformers?
Legend. Talk about reinvention. Talk about reinvention.
I love it.
The guy comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden he's smoking a J in the backseat of a car in a garage. And like, it's national headlines for like, cool.
All right. This episode of Card Talk the main lesson is life is about execution. Adam Lefkoe is a legend, and Ohio State sucks. So we will wrap it up. And thank you, Adam. Never mind.
I just want to be friends with Ryan, so I'm going to go Ohio State.
All right, we're leaving. Goodbye, everybody.
See you guys.
Oh, I love it. I love it.